As Integrity enters the Earth's atmosphere on Friday, with entry interface, as it is called, at an altitude of 400,000 feet, the vehicle will be traveling some 34,800 feet per second. The forecast peak speed is about Mach 32, some 32 times the speed of sound. There has been a lot discussed about the heat shield on Integrity. The trajectory that we are flying to bring Integrity home is different than what was flown during the Artemis 1 mission. At that time, we flew a trajectory known as a skip entry, in which we performed an initial dip into the atmosphere to dissipate some energy or speed. Then we lofted or skipped out of the atmosphere, sort of like a rock being thrown against a lake. Then we dipped a second and final time into the atmosphere before splashing down in the Pacific Ocean. As part of routine post-flight inspections and video analysis, areas of mechanical char liberation were observed, and that sent the engineers back to the drawing board to try to understand what may have caused that liberation. Here is my brief tutorial on metallurgy. Chemical decomposition of ablative heat shields like the one on Integrity is expected. That mechanical liberation of the char that occurred on Artemis 1 was somewhat unexpected. Chemical decomposition occurs as heat shield material heats up and decomposes. That's a process called pyrolysis, which generates gases during entry. The generation rate of the gas is a function of the temperature of the heat shield material, which is known as avcode. As the gases are being generated, a layer of char is forming on the surface of the heat shield. That char is porous. Now, what you want to have happen is for the gases to escape through the pores in the char layer faster than the new gas is generated. On Artemis 1, we found through post-flight analysis that the temperature profile experienced by the heat shield was such that that was not happening on areas of the heat shield with less porous areas of avcode. That resulted in a pressure buildup under the surface of the char layer. When that pressure gets high enough, some portions of the char layer could liberate from the heat shield, and did in the example of Artemis 1. So, as a result, NASA gathered experts from across the agency and private industry, including establishing an independent review team to investigate that issue. All parties agreed with the conclusion that we are flying on Artemis 2 tomorrow, a shorter entry trajectory, which will avoid a temperature profile conducive to high rates of gas generation as the avcode chemically decomposes. Now, you'll want some repelling of the heat, obviously. That's what the function of the heat shield is to repel heat. For Artemis 3 and beyond, the agency has redesigned the manufacturing process for making the avcode blocks such that we will have material that starts out more porous and will allow more efficient gas dissipation as the char layer forms. That's a critical feature for long skip entry trajectories returning from the South Pole of the Moon. The bottom line is that it was proven that the heat shield would have supported a safe entry of astronauts on Artemis 1 had they been aboard, and we are expecting no significant issues during the high-speed entry and heat buildup around the heat shield on Artemis 2 and the Integrity spacecraft tomorrow.